place. And it didn't take him any time at all before people were kind of, I mean, they just took right to him, just right to him. They were almost like kind of, they're almost fighting over who's going to get to hang with Casey that day, And there was guys in there. Was one guy in there, as older black guy. He'd been in the Crips and the Bloods during his life, and Casey had him as such a strong friend within a month or two that when other black guys came in, this guy would put his arm around Casey and take him around and introduce him to him as my man Casey. And he did that every time somebody came in. And then he made friends with all of the rest of the people. And one of them came up to him one day and he said, "You know why you done so well in here?" He said, "You know why we like you? Why we like your ass? Your cheap, skinny, white ass?" He said, "We like you because we know, we can smell prejudice. We know it." He said, "You ain't got any of it." He said, "That's real rare, and so we appreciate it." And everybody was like that with him there. And his two best friends there, they were both big black guys. But they weren't American blacks. They were African blacks from Nigeria. Big Nigerians. And one of them was like 6'3" or 4, weighed about 220, 230 maybe, just solid muscle. And Casey brought him down into town because at the end of their stay there, at the end of the 6 months, you could go out and leave and come back. And this big guy, super black, and Frank, he had a car, so they came to Huntington to the shack and had breakfast with him one morning. This guy was an absolute sweetheart, and he had done 19 years, first offense with a college education. They gave him 19 years and he served all of it. And Casey told me that the most amazing thing about Frank was he had no bitterness. No bitterness at all for being in there all that time. He said, "I did the crime, I got to do the time." And he took it. And he was just an absolute peach. I love that guy. And when I went to pick Casey up about a month later on his last day, they said I could come at 5:30 in the morning, and I was there at 5:30 to pick him up. It's pitch black, LA, super early. I pull up at the curb. Casey's already out there, and this great big black guy is standing there with him, Frank. And I opened the door and I threw Casey's stuff in the car, and they're saying goodbye. And then Casey jumps in the truck, and I walked around to Frank and I walked over to him. And he's looking at me, he says, "Hi, Mr. Wheat." I said, "Hi, Frank." And I was staring at him and I said, "You're going to miss him, huh?" Frank looked at me and he leaned back and he said, "Oh man." And that's all he said. I got in the truck and drove away.
That's a good one.
Also, there was one other guy. I'm sorry.
No.
And
Continue.
I almost forgot. Glad I didn't forget it. There was a cartel guy that came in at one point. And this guy, Casey would say hi to him every day. This guy would not say hi at first. So Casey quit saying hi to the guy. And about 2 weeks later, after he'd seen who Casey was in the place, how much everybody there was super tight with Casey. One morning he's walking by this cartel guy, and the cartel guy says hi to Casey. And then after that they were saying hi, they got to be friends a little bit. That was the only close call he had of possibly not being friends with somebody in this whole place with these people. It was a big old house with, I don't know, it had about a dozen or more people in it. That's Casey.
Steve, Casey used to tell us the stories. I don't even know how many times we heard it.
You got it.
How you took him out of school one day.
Oh, yeah, remember that day.
offshore day.
Yeah.
Will you tell us that story?
Well, I thought you were going to tell it.
I'm not telling it. It's your story to tell. I love hearing it from him and you.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard him tell it.
Yeah. one day the waves were just, it was really beautiful, just one of those unbelievable days, and it just got to be around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and it's not going to blow out, and the wind's going to keep blowing, just at a perfect temperature. And it was small, because he was little. He was still a little guy, and he hadn't really started surfing yet. And he had this little board I bought him that was kind of a foam board, I think, and he hadn't really ridden it much then. I'm pretty sure he still had that then at that time. And I just said, man, if there's a day, this is the day. This is going to light the fire on his ass, you know. And so I swung around the school and picked him up and got him. And I told him, I says, you ready? We're going down to the beach. And he goes, we're going to the beach. I says, yeah, don't you pay any attention? You know, there's offshore all day. He goes, yeah, it's a beautiful day, you know. And I said, yeah, we're going down. The waves are good, and the waves are offshore. He goes, well, I says, I got all your stuff in the back. And he's going, okay, great, yeah. At that time, he was mostly riding boogie boards in the summer, you know, and he still hadn't really cracked the ice yet with surfing. Got him down there. It was just gorgeous. It was warm. It was low tide. Wind was blowing. You know, it was green. You know, it was only about 2 or 3 foot, and it was just peelers, just fast peelers. He just went nuts. It was so beautiful, and that's the day. And he always talked about that day. That like it ignited. He was just got old enough, and that ignited the whole surf thing for him.
Where were you guys?
We were out right at about Tower 5, right out in there.
Awesome.
Tower 5.
So right down from the family house?
Yeah, right down at the end of the street from
Lake Street,
where we both grew up.
which is now First Street.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So such a rad house.
Yeah.
I drove down there today. For some reason, I thought that there's a new 2 houses that are on the corner. Are those sitting where your house used to be?
There's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was your
big
that
lot.
was your lot, right?
Yeah, that was a big lot.